Good morning. It's Friday morning. Today we're going to read from Luke 6:43 to 45. Short passage. No tree bears, no, no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. You ever hear anybody referred to as a bad seed? Heard that now and then. Oh, that's just a bad seed. He's just a bad person. Well, I don't think anybody's born to be a bad person. I think people become good or bad based on their experiences in their life. And so somebody has a very difficult life, a very hard life, they're mistreated, and they tend to react to things negatively. Somebody has a good life, they might react to things positively. Now, there are differences both ways. Somebody could have a very hard life and still be wonderfully good. Somebody could have a very good childhood and grow up and be awful. So it's all mixed up. There's nature and there's nurture and there's all these things. And I'm no expert on any of that. But Jesus says you get good fruit from a good tree and bad fruit from a bad tree. And you don't get figs from thorn bushes. Well, that's true. You don't get anything from a thorn bush except stickers in your legs, right? You don't get grapes from a bramble bush. You have to go to a grapevine or a fig tree to get those fruits. Otherwise, you're just going to get whatever you get. And so the good person out of the goodness of his heart, the good treasure in his heart, produces good things, and the bad person produces bad things. Well, what sort of good things could a good person produce? That's a question for us, a good question for us. What kinds of behavior would you see from a good person that you want to emulate and you want to encourage? I think you would see kindness, you would see love, you would also see them standing up for what's right and opposing what's wrong. A professor of mine many years ago said that he was in a drugstore and the girl behind the counter was giving the woman in front of him all kinds of grief for no good reason. She just was in a bad mood and she was just being nasty to this lady. And he said finally he couldn't stand it. And he exploded all over this poor cashier. Now, I have seen him explode, and it's not pretty. He had a temper, and he knew it, and he kept it under control most of the time. Though, if you ask a stupid question in class, you might get a taste of it. And but he said he just let this girl have it, because she was being so awful to this woman, and somebody in the store needed to stand up for what's right, and so he decided this was his turn, and he did. I'm not recommending that you go to the drugstore and chew out the cashiers just because you can, because that's not really working too much for good. But standing up for what's right when you see someone mistreated, and they're probably going to look at you, the person doing it, and say, you're not involved in this, go away, this is none of your business. But sometimes you just have to get involved in things and stand up for what's good and true and right. And it's difficult because you don't want to get into a fight with somebody. You don't want to do it, so why do it? But sometimes you have to. Well, okay. Is that what Jesus was talking about? I think so. I think he did some of that. I think he stood up for what was right and stood up for the oppressed people and didn't always put up with a lot of it. He condemned the Pharisees and the leaders, the priests, the scribes, the lawyers for the ways that they used the law and the traditions for their own benefit. And he didn't like that. Well, we can take a cue from that and cultivate, encourage the good treasure that's in our hearts so that we can produce good. And notice the last little bit, the thing he says there, something about your mouth. Out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. So you're going to know whether you're doing it right by what you say. And if you hear yourself saying things that aren't very nice, then maybe you need to, do a little cultivation. And that's a theme in lots of the scriptures. How do you tell if someone's authentic or good or not? You listen to them, and over time you'll hear them say things, and you can decide what is going on there. Well, that's a big order for today, but anyway, enjoy the day nonetheless, and we will see you tomorrow.